Okay, good morning everyone and welcome to this meeting of the Exec Sub of the Lifelong Learning Committee. First one after the summer holidays, so welcome back. Can I ask elected members if there's any declarations of interest? None. Any apologies and substitutions?
Councillor McDade has sent his apologies and Councillor Anderson is substituting.
Thank you very much, Councillor Anderson. It would be helpful if we just go round because Councillor Duff, this will be your first. No, it's not your first. Oh, okay, it's the second meeting. But if we could just go round and introduce yourselves, just so that we can all be clear who's who round the table. Start with James.
James Charles, I'm Performance Officer for Education and Children's Services.
Councillor Anderson, Councillor for Armagh and Nairn.
And Councillor John Rebick, Opposition Spokesman on Education, and Councillor for Perth City North.
Willie Wilson, Vice Convener. John Duff, Vice Convener.
Sharon Johnston, I'm Interim Head of Education for Education and Children's Services.
Bernadette Scott, Service Manager of Early Learning and Childcare. I'm Lee Verdo, Head Teacher at Fairview School.
Gillian Knox, Quality Improvement Officer, Early Years and Primary.
I'm Shona Davis, I'm the Acting Head Teacher at Cleash Primary School.
Thank you very much, and Shona and Lee, you're very welcome to the committee. We look forward to hearing from you later on. Item 3 is the minute of the meeting of the Exec Sub of 20th of May 2019. Is the minute agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. And then that takes us on to item 4, standards and quality in schools, learning communities and preschool centres, daycare of children. And we've got a number of reports before us, and I'll hand over to Sharon Johnson to take us through them. Thanks, Sharon.
Thank you, Convener. This is a paper that's well known to elected members, so I'll just briefly introduce the paper. It sets out, as it says, very briefly, the inspection of learning communities, preschool centres and day centres of children, and it provides the committee with the inspection reports of schools and nurseries from Education Scotland and from the Care Inspectorate since our last committee meeting in the 20th of May. Section 2 of the report has one published inspection from Education Scotland for this committee, and that is for Cleash Primary School. And we also have 10 new inspections from the Care Inspectorate, and they are summarised in Appendix 5. I suppose a new feature to this paper is that the red asterisks within that Appendix 5 show the 10 new inspections, because we've got a summary of all our nurseries that have been inspected. So the red asterisks denote the 10 that have happened from May until today. We have with us today Shona Davis, who's the Acting Head Teacher of Cleash Primary School, and she'll take us through the report from Education Scotland. And we also have Lee Verdo, the Head Teacher of Fairview, with us to take us through the Care Inspectorate report for the nursery in some detail. Before we do that, I'd just like to draw members' attention to Section 3 of the report, which is the performance summary, and the Table 1 on page 11 of the report provides a summary of the evaluations against the quality indicators received in our schools and nurseries since 2016 from Education Scotland. And then Table 2 on page 12 of the report provides a summary of the evaluation of the quality themes from the Care Inspectorate from all our inspections to date. And before I take us through the appendices, I just wondered if there were any questions on the performance summary.
I'm going to ask this question in a rather clumsy manner, but forgive me. We're still some way through the new regime, I call it, from particularly Education Scotland and to the degree the Care Inspectorate about, I won't say changing the goalposts, but upping the
raising the bar.
Yeah, raising the bar. I think that's a professional term. When do we get to the point where we're comparing like with like? Because there's been some angst, I think, Convener, that where previously somebody was expecting a very good or maybe an excellent and they've got a very good, or somebody was expecting a very good and they've got a good, and we're kind of, because we're still in a state of change with that, when will when will the old system disappear off the radar a bit more and the new system be? Because I think both in a local context and a national context, we're then comparing more like with like. How long have we got to go?
I suppose it's a complicated question, so I'm probably going to answer it in as complicated a way as it was asked, because it is quite complicated. In terms of the Education Scotland reports, we've had a new inspection regime since 2016. And so therefore, when we're talking about the inspection of schools, I think we're there. We already know that the bar has been raised and that we understand what the standards are in terms of our expectations of Education Scotland. So we've had 3 years. I think we need to say that we know what the raised aspirations are. And we have to forget the fact that prior to 2016, we might have been able to get a good, and we just have to expect that we will rise to the expectations that Education Scotland have set out for us. In relation to nurseries, that's quite different because we still have joint inspections from the Care Inspectorate and Education Scotland, and they are working on a new streamlined inspection system which should bring the two together. That's been slightly delayed somewhat in terms of the Scottish Government and Education Scotland being ready to present that to us. So there are still some changes to happen when it comes to the inspection of nurseries, where the Care Inspectorate regime and Education Scotland regime become more streamlined, and we will be provided then with a new set of quality indicators that we'll all have to get used to. I am not yet aware of the new dates for publication, and Ben's saying no, she doesn't know either, so we have yet to find out what that timescale would be, Councillor Wilson.
Convener, thank you. That's helpful, because I mean, I'll stop asking the question fairly soon, or at least I'll stop asking about Education Scotland, because if we're as nearly there as we're going to be, I think, Shannon, is what you're saying. But it'll be interesting to see how the collaborative approach, if that's the right phrase, of Education Scotland and the Care Inspectorate pans out, and I would hope that it would be helpful and supportive. Thank you.
Any further questions?
So could I just then move to Appendix 1 of this report then and present the inspection for Cleash Primary School. This was a short model inspection, and I would ask Gillian Knox, the Quality Improvement Officer, to briefly introduce and summarise the report for us before handing over to the Acting Head Teacher, Shona Davis.
Thank you. Cleash Primary School was inspected beginning the 13th of March, and Shona has been taking forward the school since Easter of this year, taking on the small number of steps that were identified through the inspection. As Sharon noted, it was a short model inspection, 2 days, focusing on 2.3, learning, teaching and assessment, and 3.2, raising attainment and achievement. A number of strengths were identified by the inspection team, namely the leadership of the head teacher in creating a positive school ethos, and the school is supported by teaching and support staff very well in improving children's learning experiences, achievements and attainment. The children are very articulate, well-mannered, motivated to learn, and eager to take on the leadership roles and responsibilities that they have opportunities for, and they're very proud of their school family, as they call it. Staff teamwork and engagement was also noted, and professional learning, which ensures that the needs of all children are being met appropriately. And there is a very effective partnership working with parents and the wider community, which enhances the curriculum further. So Shona will now go on to describe the plans and actions around about those small numbers of actions identified, and I hand over to you now, Shona.
Thank you, Gillian. In terms of addressing the small number of points that were raised by the inspection process, one of the things which came up was to do with learning pathways. And over the last few years at Cleash Primary School, learning pathways have been developed for numeracy and literacy, social subjects, and 1+2, which is the languages aspect. For this year's school improvement plan for session 1920, we'll be focusing on developing learning pathways across other curricular areas, including health and wellbeing and skills for learning, life and work. We aim to do this in collaboration with other schools in Perth and Kinross, creating implementation plans and providing staff with support and time to create these collegiately. These should provide clear structure and progression, to ensure that children and staff have the same clarity for learning experiences and their next steps across the curriculum, as is currently the case for literacy and numeracy in particular. Another aspect that was raised was to do with digital literacies, outdoor learning and skills aspects for learning, life and work. We will be working to ensure our children have regular opportunities to participate in outdoor learning, including it in our weekly timetables, with a focus on the development of their awareness of the skills. This will involve making the links to skills explicit as part of the learning process, within the context of outdoor learning, to enable our children to be able to talk confidently about the skills for learning, life and work. And this would allow our children to better understand how these skills for life, learning and work have direct relevance to them and their future employability. In play, loose part materials can be moved, carried, combined and lined up and taken apart in multiple ways, and these allow children to use materials as they choose, which helps them to foster many of the skills for learning, life and work, such as problem solving, working with others and leadership. So loose parts play is therefore an important part of our development for outdoor learning, and it will allow the children to become involved in taking forward aspects of our school improvement plan through our school grounds action group. Loose parts play, combined with the purchase of specific resources to enhance outdoor learning opportunities, will also link with the development of skills for learning and life and work in this way. Pupil choice, responsibility and independence in their learning was raised, and we will be developing children's understanding of their own learning. What do they need to learn and why? We'll do this through regular planned and spontaneous conversations about the learning process. Staff will initially explore what makes an effective learner and expand on this to help children understand how they as individuals learn most effectively. We will build on the way that we use our current learning steps jotters, which are used to record and reflect on these conversations. We will support children to use feedback to plan their next steps and make decisions about how and what to learn, while developing children's understanding of how they learn most effectively, to recognise which strategies, which tools and approaches help them. In terms of moderation and assessment through all curricular areas, which was something that was raised, by working regularly throughout the year with a partner school for planning and assessment, we will increase staff confidence and consistency in considering evidence of learning and assessing children's progress through curriculum for excellence levels. By working closely with partner head teachers around the monitoring process, we will ensure greater consistency of standards and expectations. Children already benefit from peer assessment approaches in class, where what a good one looks like is shared and broken down, and pupils are already involved in discussions around their peers' work. However, the opportunity to widen their experiences through discussion of work from another school will be valuable in promoting high expectations and exposing the children to feedback from other sources. By continuing to work collaboratively with our parents and carers, our local community and our partners, we will ensure that all our learners have access to high quality, relevant learning opportunities throughout our school. We will continue to engage with research and national guidance, and through a programme of professional learning work with other schools in our cluster, to ensure we are continuing to support and challenge our children to take the next steps in their learning. Continued close consultation with the substantive head teacher, Mrs Nesbitt, will ensure that the work done to build upon the strengths identified and address the main points for action identified can be continued when she returns to her post following her maternity leave. In terms of the work highlighted as good practice, Gillian's already explored some of that, and although I wasn't in post when Cleash Primary School was inspected, my own experience since taking up the post of acting head in April is that there is lots of evidence of the strengths that were identified through the inspection as part of the culture of Cleash Primary School. The school does have a very positive and inclusive school ethos. All the staff are committed to improving children's experiences, their achievements and their attainment. The children are articulate and well-mannered, motivated to learn and eager to take on leadership roles and responsibilities. And as Gillian said, they are very proud of their family. There are a wide range of opportunities for children to have a voice to improve the work of the school through their action groups of digital leadership, eco groups, school grounds, rights respecting schools group and the values and ethos groups. Effective partnership working with parents and the wider community will continue to enhance the curriculum as we engage with the range of developments I've outlined today. The children and the staff are all eager to continue to build on the good work outlined within the report, and I look forward to the opportunity to lead the school over the course of the coming year.
Thank you very much, Shona. Can I ask if there's any questions from the members for Shona or Gillian? Comment? Mm-hmm. Yep.
Thank you, Convener. Hello, Shona. Just very briefly, and as always, my opinion is humble in these matters as a non-educationalist, but I was lucky enough with Councillor Waters to visit Cleash last summer, I think it was, and Mrs Nesbitt was very welcoming, and a lot of the things that you spoke about there, the pride of the school was very clear. They were very engaged and courteous and friendly, and it was just a really pleasurable morning. I had me going down for an hour and kind of token gesture and nicking away somewhere for lunch, but actually we spent a lot longer. I probably shouldn't be so honest when the cameras are on, but actually it was a really nice morning. It was very uplifting actually to see all the kids absolutely engaged in their learning and courteous, and the pride thing was something that really shone through. It took a little bit getting used to the fact that there are no corridors in the school anyway, that you go from one classroom straight into the other one. It caught me out a little bit, but it was just a really nice morning. So if you can, everything that was in that very brief inspection report did hold true to me, and if you can pass my thanks on to Mrs Nesbitt for the morning that we had, that would be really appreciated. I think the only other thing that I did note was the inclusive thing was really important, because you do have mixed communities about there, and I think the attendance from the travelling community there was really high, which it hadn't been previously, and I think that is something to be commended as well. So thank you very much anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Ribbett. Councillor Duff and I also had a bit of an impromptu visit to the school when we were looking at the building, and can absolutely attest to the children that we came across just embraced us, involved us straight away into their maths lesson, which involved boxes of cereal, completely confident, telling us all about their transition up to the P7s up to high school. Absolutely, you know, the confidence, willingness to talk about their learning and involve us straight off and be able to very clearly explain what was going on. We were loath to leave, weren't we? So it's obviously the cliche thing: they get you in, then don't let you go. So we can attest to that too. I think at the meeting that we had with the parents, it was encouraging to hear their buy-in to the improvement plans for, you know, how to keep moving the school along. I thought that was it was very interesting to hear how knowledgeable they were about the detail of what needed to be done as next steps. I'd be interested to know how you're going to involve the parents, because they were clearly very eager to be involved, and also the pupil council plans to develop their leadership roles as well. That would be useful to know about.
Thank you. There are built in to the school improvement plan, there's opportunities for parents to become involved in helping with, for example, the loose parts play, and for helping to support the action groups that are already established within the school and take on quite a lot of responsibility. There are also opportunities for parents planned into the yearly calendar to become involved in the life of the school and supporting the children's learning. But the one where it particularly shines through is to do with skills, learning, life and work, and we've got a wide range of parents with skills of their own within their own jobs, that there is opportunity for them to share with the children within assemblies and class discussions and talks. So we look forward to taking that forward as well.
And one further point was about the discussions about outdoor learning, rich environment, the community field, you know, down the road, and opportunities for the community to be involved in that learning also. So I would think there'd be a huge range of opportunities for you to embrace there, and beyond the confined, almost restricted nature of the playground. Yeah,
absolutely. Yes, and there are members of the community who attend parent council meetings who don't have children in our school, so that they can help to contribute to the school where it's relevant and appropriate for them to do so.
Any further questions or comments, Councillor Wilson?
Thanks. One or two questions first. How many placing requests have we got at the school?
13 placing requests.
13.
Wilson, yes.
Does that represent 13 pupils?
It's 13 pupils, yes, out of 49.
Yeah, okay. Which is for a middle, if I call it a rural middle-sized school. I'm never very sure what to say, what's small, but in terms of where we are in Kinrossshire here, it's maybe middle-sized schools, quite a few. Always, convener, reminds me of a gathered congregation if you're talking about a church, but we're not. What I always look at the bullet points, the following areas for improvement, and always I'm pleased when I see as planned and continue to, because they're the code words. Their education speak for you're on the right lines, but do more of it, I think. And then you turn over and you see the assessment. So I'm pleased with the very good, and I think it's well deserved about attainment and achievement. Do you get a feel for when they're doing the inspection that you'll kind of know how it's going, I guess? But I know you weren't present, you weren't in the room at the time, so it's maybe an unfair question, but maybe Sharon and others could pick this up. I sometimes still see, convener, a bit of disparity between what the words say in here, right, and what the quality indicators are. And I'm reading this because I try not to turn over first, right? There's a temptation always to see the quality indicators, but to look at this and say, right, okay, let me guess what the results are going to be. And I'm often disappointed. I don't think unrealistically disappointed, because you can see where the thing's heading by reading all the positives. I'm disappointed they didn't say a bit more about some of your positives, particularly about the school family, because that's something that comes through very, very clearly. And I'm remiss in not being to Clichy. I need to get down there, but I realise I've got to leave at least half a day for the visit, because otherwise it's not going to be worthwhile. But and is that, Sharon, is that something that we share in relation to not disappointment but an expectation? And we have threatened to bring Education Scotland back here for us to have a word in their ear and speak to them. And maybe this is another example of it's near enough but not quite stuff. And I'm perplexed about this, as I think I would go. The convener doesn't always share my perplexed nature, but you might want to comment on that.
I think, as you alluded to earlier on, Councillor Wilson, I suppose we're now getting used to the raising of the bar. And it says in the report that Education Scotland regards satisfactory or better as a report which is good enough, that there is no further need for them to come back to check that the local authority are ensuring continuous improvement within the school. So satisfactory is their benchmark for good enough, and therefore good is better than satisfactory. I suppose we do recognise, and we've had more inspections in the primary sector in this last academic year than we've had previously. We did have 11 inspections in total, 9 come to this committee. And good is a good result in that where you see threaded through the narrative, where they've seen aspects of good practice, they're not seeing it consistently across the board, or they're not seeing it at a deep enough level that they would want to do that. So we don't feel too aggrieved. We just have to get used to the fact that good is actually good. And we, from an educational perspective, understand that just as you've picked out from the inspection report, it is about continuing to do something that's already been done or planning to do. Very good is the next evaluation, and that has to be something that tells the inspection team that everything is in place and consistently in place, and it's been in place over time. And excellent is sector leading, and that happens rarely. So, you know, I think from our perspective, we thought it was a fair inspection, but Shona may have a different view.
I find it quite difficult to comment on that because I wasn't actually in post and didn't meet with the inspectors. I'm sorry.
I understand that totally. Thanks, Sharon, for your reassurance. I'm still arguing internally in my own brain with some of this stuff. I'm quite prepared to be a lone voice in the wilderness and to agree on it, but or maybe I'm just old and crabbit and take longer to get used to things now than we should, and the convener will comment on that. Councillor Revick said it all. But anyway, well done. I mean, it's good, and there's a mixture with what I said, the gathered community, the placing requests, the travelling folk. The school building isn't as good as we would want it. That's another factor. But you make good use of what you've got, I think, is quite clear. Although I haven't been, I have a spy locally who tells me how Cleash Primary School's getting on. It's Councillor Robertson, if you want to know who it is. So, and he's I think keeps in touch with the school a fair bit. So yeah, fine, and it's good to get these results.
Any further comments or questions? No? Well, Shona, we would just ask that you take back our thanks to the staff for all that they do and to the parents for the support they give the school, and particularly to the children who there's certainly 3 of us in this meeting who've experienced them, and wish them well as you build on the report. So thank you very much, and please do take that back, because we know that we only get these results in front of us as a result of the hard work and commitment of the staff in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I move to Appendix 2 then from the report? And this is a Care Inspectorate report, and we've had 10 Care Inspectorate inspections since we met last in May. This inspection report is here as an exception, and it's our Fairview, our only special school nursery. And it's here as an exception because the 2 quality themes that were inspected by Care Inspectorate were evaluated as excellent, and as I've just alluded to, that is not an easy task, and it's certainly not an easy task in a special school. And therefore we've invited Lee Verdeau to come along and talk to this report. I'll just ask Ben Scott, Service Manager for Early Years, to do a brief introduction, and then Lee will take us through the report.
The Care Inspectorate visited Fairview on the 25th of March in 2019. Fairview is registered for up to 6 children between 2 and 5 years old. The focus of this inspection centred around 2 quality indicators: quality of care and support and the quality of the environment. There are many positive comments regarding the experiences of young people in Fairview within this report. And I'm happy to say to you that from previous inspections in way back as far as 2012, Fairview now have excellent evaluations for all 4 of the quality indicators. So I think it's fair to say that they are indeed sector leading. And it now gives me pleasure to hand over to Lee to share greater detail regarding the findings of that inspection in March.
Thank you. So I'm just going to talk through the report today. I'm very pleased to be here to be able to share this, because it was an incredibly positive report, and the staff and the whole school are very, very proud of this report, and feel that it's justified as well. I think the key points for me were the comments from parents. It's always really, really important, and it's really lovely to hear when parents are validating what you're saying as well. And I think that the parents felt that the relationships with staff were very positive, and that parents felt included in the day-to-day life of the pupils within the nursery. We have communication diaries which are filled in, but we also use Seesaw, the online learning app, so that parents can see actually in almost real time any of the positive things that are happening with the pupils, and they really appreciate that as well. It also highlights how we're developing children's communication, and that's a real priority for us. A lot of our children are non-verbal, so really getting those building blocks in their communication development really early on is incredibly important. And obviously being in all through school is really helpful because we're then able to pass on that information throughout the rest of the school, so those skills are not lost. And there's a consistent approach then to that across the whole school. Children's voice was evident as well. I'm really pleased about that. That's something we've been working on again as a whole school, and that they were able to hear those voices loud and clear, despite the children being non-verbal is great. They commented on the outdoor environment as well, another area we've been working on throughout the course of last year to try and promote independence and try and promote free play and allowing children to make choices in what they do in their day-to-day experiences. And it is very much, it focuses on the individual at all times. So every day is totally different, every year is different for the individual pupils that come in, and our focus is to make all the young people as independent as possible, working with the parents and all the other agencies. It does comment on loose parts play as well, which is something which, again, we really had a massive focus on last year. And there were challenges to that because we're thinking, how's this going to work with a lot of the children who are sort of putting everything in their mouth and such like. But the staff have really embedded that and really taken that on board and worked with the families and tried to promote that. And it's been really successful. And we were pleased that was noted and that they found that the children were busy and engaged in their learning, and that they were continuing to develop all those skills as well. And also the sensory environment as well was commented on. And again, that's really important for our young people, that we get that sensory input right for them at all times. So we were very, very pleased with that. And yeah, I think it talks about the room, and again, a lot of work has gone into getting that right for the young people, and that changes as well. When we get different pupils in, we'll have to change that around, so it's good that they were able to see all that. So we're very pleased with the report. Thank you.
And so you should be, because it is absolutely excellent. I thought the wording of the report on page 3 of the inspection report talked about the warm and affectionate relationships between the staff, and just the language that's used in it is just very positive. And if any colleagues have been up to Fairview, you'll know that that's just the way it is there. That's just the Fairview way, and that's what makes it so particularly special in meeting the needs of children and young people who really require that extra input from the staff. And again, I said it to Cleash, but we know that it's the staff there that create the environment that's very special. So please take back that comment from us. Can I ask if there's any questions or comments from colleagues? Councillor Ribbick.
Thank you, Convener. Just very briefly, I think it's important to set the context of it all. And I've been lucky, in all seriousness, having only been an elected member for 2 years. I do find it easier to understand the new raised bar, if that's the way to put it. And so I do kind of understand, Councillor Wilson, why, having been here such a long time, and I mean that in the most respectful way, that actually it is more difficult. I've been lucky enough that I've only had this regime, and I know that a good is a good, and I'm quite satisfied when schools get a good, and a very good does what it says in the tin is very good. And I also know that in my 2 years, and it goes back well before my time here, that Education and Children's Services in Perth and Kinross have always aspired to an excellent standard. And that's a culture that's really positive and encouraging. And I think we are aware that if we fall slightly short of excellent, then that's still, that's great. In this case, of course, and I'm blaring on there about the context, because in this case, of course, we haven't fallen short at all. It's been 2 excellents, 4 excellents over the last few years, and it is just unbelievable, and we're very grateful as elected members, and it's appropriate that we record our gratitude for that. It is astonishing under the new regime to have such a high standard. What makes it doubly astonishing, of course, is the nature of the work that you do there, and it's probably in many ways our most important nursery that we have, and to get 2 out of 2 excellence in those circumstances is, as I say, there's just nothing else you can say other than superb. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any other? Councillor Wilson?
Maybe I should have declared an interest because I'm a reasonably regular visitor to Fairview, not always for educational reasons, convener, but I'm still fighting to get the jungle at the back of the school made, tamed at least, and attempt to stop the lions coming out of it from time to time. But to be serious, well, that is a serious issue in itself, but to be serious about the educational aspect, my last comment said, well, I read the inspection report and then turned over. I would have been shocked if there had been anything else, but excellent, because there's a whole A4 page of a good accolade, I think. And then there's 2.5 lines, which I think is a world record of what you could do better, right? 2.5 lines. In fact, it's nearly 2.25 lines if you just count the words. So that's really good. I think there's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of challenges with dependency of young people here. That's just a reality that's changed over the years and has increased. There's, I think, a big challenge in every youngster's an individual, very much an individual. And that's one of the things that really shines about just the way the staff speak to the youngsters, the way they conduct with them. And it's not just the teaching staff, it's the support staff, it's the reception staff, it's can I still say dinner ladies? Or the
I know what you mean.
Yeah, okay. The dining room staff, right? And they're all part of that culture of care and support that's really, really important. And the place is full. It's, if I could say chock-a-block, I don't think there's a lot of spaces, right? And that's another issue. There's not a lot of space here, spare space. So there are a lot of challenges. And I think it's difficult to keep up, as John Ribbick was saying, that standard of excellence, given the challenges. But just well done and keep going.
Any further questions or comments? Councillor Duff.
Thank you. I think we talked about this before. It's somewhere I would quite like to visit. I've never had an opportunity to come up to Fairview. But my similar kind of experience in the past has been with Chaz, the Children's Hospice. And I think a lot of the challenges that maybe you have are kind of similar in many ways. I was interested to read about the development of your outdoor space and the introduction of a mud kitchen. What is that?
It actually doesn't involve any mud. So and the nursery have their own outdoor area, and again it's just about promoting play in a range of kind of real life context. So it is things like there's a kitchen sink and there's pots and pans and there's all sorts of utensils around about, and it's just outside the nursery, and the children just go and they use their imagination. In some playgrounds it would be in a kind of muddy area, so they would have bits of mud, but our one they would bring in, so some days it might be leaves and there'd be little stones and bits of bark and all sorts of real life materials, and they'd be mixing them up and making mud pies, I suppose, and things like that.
Vision of a clay oven or something like that.
Not yet.
Thank you very much. Well, Lee, what can we say? It's excellent. Thank you very much. Please take again our comments back to staff, because we, particularly at Fairview, we know that the environment they work in is somewhere very special, but equally probably very demanding. Keeping their energy and resilience levels up is so important. So please take back our positive comments and grateful thanks for all they do. Thank you. Just looking down the agenda, is that?
The only other thing I would just draw your attention to are the further appendices. So we have at the back of the report Appendix 3, which provides a summary of the preschool inspections and the primary and secondary school inspections since 2016 from Education Scotland, and it just gives a summary of all of the evaluations where we've got them for all the schools and preschools that we've had since 2016. Appendix 4 is then the benchmarking with our national and comparators for the nurseries and the schools. And you'll see that across the national indicators we are doing very well in comparison. Appendix 5 is the summary of the evaluations of the quality themes from the Care Inspectorate then for our nurseries. And Appendix 6, and then, I'm sorry, just as I mentioned earlier, Appendix 5, what we're going to do from now on is just so that you know which are the new ones, so just put the red asterisks so that people know which ones are the most recent.
That's really helpful, because I think sometimes you kind of go, you just get lost in the list.
When did that happen?
So that is really helpful. Thanks for that.
So that's just, for members to know which ones are the newest. Appendix 6 is our benchmarking against our national and comparator authorities against the quality themes, and you'll see that this is the one where we're falling short of our own expectations, and that is that we are below in two areas: quality of environment and quality of management and leadership. And obviously that causes us concern. We're well aware of the reasons behind that, and I would, if members would wish, could invite Ben just to talk through some of the analysis of those indicators and what we're doing about it.
That would be very helpful, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Generally, Perth Kinross are outperforming the national picture, but we do have these two areas of concern where we are not outperforming. And as Sharon had said, it's the areas of quality of management and leadership and quality of the environment. And we believe that that's in part due to the introduction of the health and social care standards in April 2018, which everybody is still getting used to. So there is an element of change and settings needing to catch up with that change. So that's part of it. But we believe that the quality of management and leadership is in some part due to the fact that it's connected to environment, and managers and head teachers tend to agree to take the hit, if you like, for another area that is not, because they're so clearly matched together, environment, staffing. Sometimes what we think is that the head teacher will say, well, that's my responsibility, actually, and that can be connected to why the leadership and management is lower in some cases, in some settings. That's our anecdotal conversations that we have with head teachers and managers. But as well as that, the bar is raised, and we've said that previously. And so in response to that, we have increased the development opportunities that we have for our head teachers and local authority nurseries, and we are now align them with the same opportunities that we give to our partner provider managers, and there are 4 development sessions over a year, so that we are keeping our head teachers as up to speed as we are with our partner provider managers. Into next year, we're also going to look to offer further development opportunities for head teachers who might not have experience of early years, because that does happen. And leading and managing a nursery is complex, and so we're hoping to ensure that everybody has the same amount of experience in terms of leadership and management and all that it brings. So that would be a new introduction for next year. We've also introduced over the last 2 years some senior ECP training, which we haven't had previously. So this is to pick up on the fact that we've noticed that there is an element of change in Perth Kinross. So we have run 2 senior ECPs programmes last year and the year before, where we've taken through 25 candidates, and that's what's helping us to put in more focused and experienced people into these positions. In terms of the environment, we were aware of that. We had spotted that coming through in the inspections, and we last year chose to focus in on the environment, and so the early years team conducted what we call support and development visits with a focus on the environment, where we went out with a very clear checklist of what a really good one looks like, and we visited and we had a dialogue, and we worked with staff to ensure that where we thought it maybe wasn't as it should be, we were picking up on that. So we went through all of that last session on the basis of some of these results.
Can I just ask, so when you talk about environment, the specifics of what would you be actually looking to assess when you went out on the visit?
Okay, so the environment would include how the nursery room was set up or the playroom was set up. It would include the access to resources for independent choice, so that children had an element of creating their own learning environment. It would be things like lighting. It would be things like outdoor free flow, outdoor access. It would also be about the interactions with adults, and that they had the correct amount of support at the correct time. But it would also be about quality furnishings, homely environments. The list is probably endless, but I suppose it's about just making sure that the children are safe, are secure, and have the right access to the right resources at the time that they wish to do that, so that they're not restricted at any given point in their day in terms of what pathway they might want to take in terms of their learning.
Thank you for that. Any questions? Yep.
Thank you, Convener, again. And we'll just try and be as brief as possible, but it's just, I think, and I'll have spoken 3 times and it'll be glowingly all 3 times, and I promise you that's because it's deserved, but I think it is typical of our management staff in education and children's services that when we fall literally 1 or 2% behind the comparator, that we take action to do something about it, which is really encouraging. There's never been any hint of complacency in any levels in my 2 years in lifelong learning. It is, of course, really important that we're not in this case, given what we're already involved in early years childcare expansion and what's to come. But any questions that I had in my mind have been answered by your presentation, so thank you very much.
I totally agree with what you just said, John, and I think it's that striving constantly, you know, and the palpable disappointment when there's like a tiny sort of, but equally that's what we're here for, is to deliver the very best that we can. So I appreciate the kind of honesty and frankness of what you've said, Ben. That's really helpful, actually, and anything that we as elected members can do to support the development to get us up to being ahead of our comparators, as we always want to be, because we can't get away from it. Any other questions or comments?
Sorry to come back in again. And again, just very basically, the way that the information is provided now in Appendix 3, 4, 5, 6, I think it's really helpful, because it's just the summary of where we've been in recent inspections and the tables is just really helpful, I find. So that's appreciated.
We'll direct that down to James at the end of the table,
Well,
who always
you,
sits there as a
no,
quiet presence in the room, but we know that he's the man behind the stats.
Because often, not often, occasionally the way that information is presented to us elected members, I find occasionally it is quite complicated, but not in this case. It's really succinct and to the point. It enables us to take on board what we need to take on board, so it's appreciated. And
Councillor Wilson and I know that it would well pass the Barbara Vaughan test.
Yeah, and thank you, and I would like to say that it is something we do take seriously, and we do a lot of work on to try and anticipate how information is best presented and how it's most useful. And one of the challenges with that, as we've discussed, is the evolving nature of how presentations inspections are conducted and the results come through. We can never rest on our laurels and say we've got it sorted. We always have to think about what new information is coming in, how is it going to change, how can we absorb that, but also make it relatable to the information we already have. So it's an ever-moving feast, but it's always great to hear that it's working. And the best we can hear is that there are no issues and that you're getting the information you need, and that's what we aim for.
Thanks. If you can please, Mr. Grumpy, with the presentation of statistics, and I'm the archetypical Mr. Grumpy, I can assure you. This is readable, and it's understandable, and it's easy to get a picture at a glance. And John's right, there are times when some of the council stuff defies interpretation, in my opinion. I'm not good with stats, I'm not good with figures, but I do understand these lovely wee block diagrams. They're easy, they're seriously easy to read, and they're quick to pick up on what the key messages are. Moving on from that, you've answered most of my questions because they were relating to how are we supporting our head teachers, how are we helping develop them. Getting them is one thing, that isn't easy sometimes, but developing them and supporting them, and I think the programme you've outlined is helpful. The environment answer you gave to the convener was interesting because we're coming up for probably the most difficult time of the year in terms of the council, and that's the dreaded new discussion about the budget for next year. And we're all involved in it. I say this quite freely. So I think one of the not easy things to make savings about, but one of the less difficult things is support and training and supplies and services, because you can get away with doing that without it being noticed as quickly as you can for staff and stuff like that. So I think that when we're all going through that process, as we will be, I'm sure we're all relishing it and looking forward to it, that we take cognizance of the fact that providing support for people, and sometimes physical support in terms of the quality of the environment. We've got a lot of new schools, but we've also got a lot that are older and perfectly good buildings, but it's what you were saying, it's the kit, it's the equipment, it's how you use it, it's the interrelationship of the space to a degree. I think we need to keep these things in mind when we're in this anxious world of looking at the budget. So that's a lesson for me anyway.
Okay, that's everything. Yep. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, James. Meeting to close.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.